A much younger-looking President Obama as he took office 8 years ago. This is, of course, his last weekend in the White House, and from foreign policy to environmental issues, the president is making a number of controversial last-minute moves that could be very difficult for President-elect Trump to undo if he so chooses. You think about the last couple of weeks of this administration, major change when it comes to U.S. policy towards Israel, the naming of a number of federal monuments that even the governors and senators from those states don't want, the change this week in the wet foot, dry foot policy as it relates to Cuba. A number of these things are going to be difficult to undo. Have we ever seen a president in the last couple of weeks of office go forward in this way to try and make things difficult, if you will, for the guy coming in next?
Not in recent memory that we could think back, probably to President Eisenhower at least, that things like that didn't happen. We see that this president doesn't seem to want to leave the stage, and wants to have impact even after his presidency, and these are examples of him trying to maintain that.
In his going away address earlier this week on Tuesday, when he said, "I'm going to still be part of the conversation, I am going to still argue passionately for the things that I believe in," a very different goodbye than, say, we got from George W. Bush, who went to Texas and started painting.
Marching through Washington, D.C., civil rights activists led by Reverend Al Sharpton are kicking off a week of protests ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. Black Lives Matter! They're upset about the Republicans' angry populist platform, which included controversial comments on Muslims, Mexicans, and women, among others. Sharpton says all must take a stand against Trump, especially those in Washington.
We come to say to the Democrats in the Senate and in the House and into the moderate Republicans to get some backbone, get some guts.
It's a message Sharpton promises to keep up, vowing not to back down.
We won't be trumped. We won't be trumped.
A message yelled here, loud and clear.
3 military choppers flying up over my house here. Really hard to catch these guys. Generally they fly low and fast. Today they're not. They're up to. Well, Daru, if you want to use this video, you can. This is over Berwick, Maine.
Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson says he knows of no specific threat to next week's inauguration activities, but just in case, law enforcement personnel have been getting ready for trouble.
At a Maryland training facility, Secret Service agents are doing final preps for Inauguration Day.
There he is.
Fox News was granted exclusive access to this week's training that includes a mock-up of the White House parade route.
We don't want to be seeing these events for the first time on January 20th.
Secret Service agents working through 40 incidents, from armed attacks to accidents.
How are we going to respond if the President or First Lady were to sprain an ankle while they're walking? If there's an assault of some sort or a mortar attack? Every scenario has a different response.
At Secret Service headquarters, Director Joseph Clancy said the inauguration shares the same high-level security designation as the Pope's visit, as well as the Republican and Democratic conventions.
Are there specific or credible threats to the president-elect?
There's nothing specific or no credible threats at this point. In the last inauguration, we weren't as concerned about the drones, the UASs, the unmanned aerial systems.
In this drill, a drone sprays the crowd with a chemical agent.
So we try to what if these things constantly. We do tabletop exercises, and so everyone is on the same page.
More than 700,000 people are expected, about the same size as the last inauguration. But this time, 99 protest groups have applied for permits.
If you make an overt act towards the president or any of our protectees, now you've crossed that line, and we're going to respond. But if someone is shouting or yelling, certainly their First Amendment rights we protect.
Like Times Square on New Year's Eve, there will be trucks with cement creating a hardened perimeter, a response to ISIS-inspired terrorists mowing down civilians in France and at a German Christmas festival.
That is a precaution that we are doubling down on.
While Director Clancy served on President Obama's detail, he has already met with the president-elect. During the campaign, Mr. Trump was rushed off stage in Nevada.
I have sat down with Mr. Trump on a couple of occasions. We talked about his security in general and what we can do for him and his family.
What's that relationship like?
Well, he's been very gracious. As you've seen publicly, he spoke very highly of the men and women of the Secret Service.
Director Clancy came out of retirement to lead the Secret Service.
There will be, at the hard perimeter areas this year, in light of the current threat environment, which includes Nice and Germany, more heavily fortified against unauthorized vehicles by dump trucks, heavy trucks, trucks with cement, buses and things of the like. That is a precaution that we are doubling down on, in particular this inauguration. We know of no specific credible threat directed toward the inauguration. However, that is only part of the story. Various different agencies have estimated a crowd on Inauguration Day of somewhere between 700,000 and 900,000 people.
WikiLeaks says founder Julian Assange will agree to be extradited to the U.S. if President Barack Obama pardons Chelsea Manning. Assange has been holed up at the Ecuadorian embassy in London since 2012, avoiding extradition to Sweden, where he faces sexual assault allegations. Assange was granted asylum by the embassy after voicing concern that Sweden would extradite him to the U.S., where he could be prosecuted for publishing leaked military documents, many of which were provided by Manning. Manning is a former U.S. soldier. She's currently serving a 35-year sentence for releasing more than 700,000 documents from the U.S. State Department. Manning, who identifies as female, is being held at an all-male facility at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. She reportedly tried to commit suicide twice in 2016 and went on a hunger strike to protest her treatment in prison. Manning petitioned for clemency in November. She's rumored to be on Obama's commutation shortlist.
The global economy has been going through uncertainties in recent years, even going back towards protectionism. But one thing for sure is that China and Switzerland are going upstream against the current. In 2013, Switzerland became the first continental European country to have signed a free trade agreement with China, and last year the two countries signed a first-of-its-kind innovative comprehensive partnership. The Chinese president's upcoming visit is set to upgrade relations and business cooperation to a whole new level.
President Xi's visit to Switzerland is sending a very clear message to Europe. No matter how bad the situation Europe is facing right now, China will always be a strong support to maintain the China-Europe ties of prosperity and stability.
China stands ready to carry out more cooperation with Switzerland to embrace the fourth industrial revolution. The two sides are set to open up new areas. Swiss President Luther said they should share more experience as innovative cooperation proceeds.
I think it was a honor also, and that China and Switzerland could sign and enter in a new phase of cooperation. And it shows that we both think innovation is key for the future.
Now China is playing an increasingly active role as a responsive and responsible global economy. The Swiss president said the world needs China's wisdom. Her country looks forward to further cooperating with China with mutual trust.
We will see an increasing potential of cooperation. We're signing some agreements in different areas. I hope that this state visit will increase our cooperation in all these new fields which are important for tomorrow.
We need to repeal and replace Obamacare. This is a critical first step toward delivering relief to Americans who are struggling under this law. In the weeks ahead, several steps will be taken to provide relief. People were promised, if you like your plan, you can keep it. Well, guess what? That was rated the lie of the year that year. People lost their plans. People were promised all sorts of choices. You'll have all these great menus of choices to choose from. A third of all the counties in America today, you get one choice. 5 whole states, one insurer. This experiment has failed. This law is collapsing while we speak. We have to step in before things get worse. This is nothing short of a rescue mission. By taking this step today, we are doing what is right.
There is not a better way that has been proposed. Some discussion about across state lines, some other discussion about health savings accounts, which is great if you have the kind of salaries we have. But if you're an average American trying to support your family, getting additional funds to put into a health savings account are not available to you. Mr. Speaker, this budget resolution is an abdication of responsibility and duty.
Republicans talk about they're going to repeal and replace. Interesting, alliteratively, but not realistic in terms of what for 6 years they have had a chance to propose an alternative. We've seen nothing, but what we have seen is their cut and run. They want to cut benefits and run. They want to cut savings and run. They want to cut access and run. We will not allow the Republicans to make America sick again. I urge a no vote on this unfortunate resolution.
On this vote, the ayes are 227, the nays are 198. Majority voting in the affirmative, the concurrent resolution is agreed to.
Two new tropical mosquitoes capable of carrying viruses dangerous to you and me have been discovered in Florida. And the Sunshine State remains ground zero for local Zika infections in the U.S.
For nearly a decade, Florida has been invaded by a growing number of exotic mosquitoes capable of transmitting diseases like dengue and Zika. Just as the state has finally managed to curb the spread of Zika, 2 new virus-carrying mosquitoes have been discovered in the southern part of the state. The newest breeds of flying vectors were discovered in Homestead and Florida City. Experts say the Adiomia and Culex mosquitoes can spread several debilitating viruses to humans, including the Everglades virus. These breeds are native to Central and South America and generally thrive in swampy wetlands. Experts believe the new mosquitoes likely arrived on plants and spread across canals and ponds in South Florida. While the spread of the Everglades virus so far hasn't been detected, experts worry once the weather gets warmer, mosquitoes could spread the disease from wetlands to human-dominated habitats. The discovery comes at a particularly bad time for South Florida. Over the summer, a Zika outbreak in this area created alarm among residents and drove away tourists and their spending dollars. Florida's Department of Health says nearly 1,300 travel and locally acquired Zika cases have been reported in the state, including 209 pregnant women.
Hundreds of domestic cats have been quarantined in New York City after contracting a strain of highly contagious avian flu at shelters operated by a major animal rescue organization. According to Reuters, officials say the virus has also infected at least one veterinarian. More than 450 cats will remain at a temporary shelter for up to 90 days until a University of Wisconsin lab confirms they are no longer contagious. The New York City Health Department says it's the first time the H7N2 strain of the virus has infected domestic cats. The virus is most commonly found in birds. Health Commissioner Mary Bassett said in a statement, "We continue to urge New Yorkers who have adopted cats from ACC shelters to be on alert for symptoms in their pets and take proper precautions." She said the risk to human health from H7N2 is low.
A new report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, says that some wild Pacific salmon from Alaska was found to be infected with tapeworms, including Chinook salmon, pink salmon, rainbow trout, and sockeye salmon. The Japanese broad tapeworm can cause diarrhea and abdominal pain. The research shows that the salmon caught anywhere on the Pacific coast of North America may be infected, but the tapeworm larvae can be killed if the fish is cooked thoroughly.
Thousands have taken to the streets in northern Gaza to protest chronic power outages during the cold winter season. The demonstrators, as they marched towards the headquarters of an electricity company, were dispersed by Hamas security forces wielding batons. Nearly 2 million residents now get just 4 hours of power per day. A spokesperson for the Gaza Electrical Distribution Company says the available electricity capacity doesn't even cover a quarter of demand. Protests in Gaza are rare but have grown as a result of worsening electricity crisis.
Tsunami. Vai entrar água aqui.
A state usually associated with sunshine and drought is now being hit with waves of blizzards and floods.
There have been plenty of flood warnings in California over the last few days, but this flood came without warning. Here in the town of Hollister, the fast rising water took residents by surprise. This farming town south of San Jose, California, quickly turned into one giant swamp after a nearby creek overflowed. Emergency crews responded to calls overnight from dozens of panicked residents trapped inside their homes. By daybreak, ranchers were still leading their animals to dry land. Kevin O'Neill is the county's emergency services manager.
The scene here last night was challenging at times. It was dark. A lot of these houses did suffer some damage.
In Sonoma County, the Russian River rose once again. It reached nearly 38 feet this afternoon, about 6 feet above flood level. Firefighters were out in swift boats saving homeowners and stranded drivers from the unrelenting waters. Melba Martinelli had to leave her home.
It's our home. It's the only one we've got. So we're losing our home, it looks like, right now.
In the Sierra Nevada, storms have now dumped more than 10 feet of snow, toppling trees, downing power lines, and collapsing a huge chunk of this mountain road. But for some, this extreme weather has provided opportunities for extreme adventure. Even storm clouds can have a silver lining.
For California, brutal cold is causing problems, but this is a sight of beauty. Yosemite in a blanket of snow, ribbons of white cascading down waterfalls, and winding rivers on the way to lakes and reservoirs. Enough this month to end Northern California's 5-year drought.
I've worked here for over 20 years now, and this is the way winters used to be.
This is a dramatic turnaround. Yosemite's Half Dome, January 11th, 2012, and now. Last year, 87% of California was in severe drought. Today, nearly half the state is out of the red. Once depleted reservoirs brimming over 100% of normal. Dams now releasing excess water. Southern California is getting much needed rain today too, but the deluge is also triggering mudslides, crumbling parts of a home in the Hollywood Hills. In Portland, Oregon, a state of emergency. Plows arriving from Seattle to help clear the roads. In Washington state, this roof collapsed under the weight of heavy snow. In wine country, some are cleaning up and wading through water and mud not seen in a decade. It was closed, but the road to Yosemite is open today.
It's incredible.
Once inside, revealing an incredible glimpse of both Mother Nature's wrath and all of her splendid beauty.
This winter has been a wet one for the West Coast, and that's helped California make major progress toward ending the state's drought. 3 months ago, 100% of the Golden State was abnormally dry, with 42% in an extreme or exceptional drought. Fast forward to January, and 1/3 of the state is done with the drought.
In some countries, it's the lowest temperatures in more than 50 years, causing misery for residents and headaches for authorities. Countries in Eastern Europe and the Balkans have been hardest hit, with more than 70 deaths caused by the freezing weather. For example, in Albania, at least 8 people have died as snow fell for the first time in resort towns in the south of the country. Rare heavy snowfall has been seen in many places, including Dubrovnik in Croatia. What looked to be a typical mild winter suddenly changed overnight, catching authorities and the public by surprise. Further west in Europe, alerts have been in place for snowstorms and flooding, including here in Scotland. Disruption to travel is widespread, with many schools also closed. The UN Refugee Agency has also voiced concern about how refugees and migrants are coping in the freezing conditions, saying governments must do more to help them.
Tens of millions of people are in the path of this winter blast. Oklahoma's governor declared a state of emergency yesterday so crews could start prepping roads. And there's already some ice that's starting to form. You can see it here on this fence. That can pose a problem if it gets on power lines because it can snap the power lines. Just up the road in Joplin, Missouri, that winter storm blew through and left a coat of ice all across the city. Icicles were hanging off signs, and the area was covered in a thin layer of ice, making roads very slippery. Drivers in the Show Me State also have to keep an eye out for this: trees toppled by ice that end up blocking the road. Road crews have been busy for hours throughout the Midwest, salting and sanding major roadways to keep them passable.
These are not scenes from a Hollywood horror movie. This is an abandoned railway barracks in downtown Belgrade. When the extreme weather hit, refugees and migrants here broke inside for shelter, using anything they could lay their hands on to start a fire. Just outside, a van makes its way through the blizzard alongside hundreds of queuing men. It carries the one treat these people will get today.
This queue right next to me is going to have roughly around 1,000 migrants and refugees who are waiting for their only hot meal a day, which is provided by the NGO. Currently, temperature here in Belgrade is -7, but just days ago, temperature plummeted even to -20.
But one hot meal a day and few free blankets won't solve their problems.
Heavy winds, snow and some of the lowest temperatures in decades are wreaking havoc across Europe. The UK's Met Office has issued severe weather warnings here in Scotland, while there are 17 severe flood warnings indicating danger to life in place across England and Wales. Reports suggest more than 70 people have died as a result of the extreme weather across the continent. In France, violent winds have caused damage and left 110,000 people without electricity in the northern regions of Picardy and Normandy. Disruption to travel is widespread. Snow brought traffic to a standstill here in Germany. Poland is in the grip of freezing temperatures, while heavy winds have led to road accidents in southeastern parts of the country. In some countries, temperatures are at their lowest in more than 50 years, and winds have topped 140 kilometers per hour. The River Danube is said to have frozen over in stretches for the first time in 5 years. Here in Budapest, ice jams have formed and the city is blanketed in snow.
Oh shit. Oh, buddy.
A mammoth blizzard pounding Lake Tahoe, and that area getting several feet of snow this week. In fact, take a look at our next guest's home and these incredible photos. This is his house. Before and after, if you will. You can see the before. This is when there's no snow. Obviously, the after tells us a different story.
impresionante sistema de tormenta se está moviendo desde el sector sur. Se puede apreciar la masa de nubosidad oscura, se ha ennegrecido prácticamente la ciudad. Al fondo ya es posible observar una cortina de precipitación. Sin lugar a duda es una manifestación de tormenta severa de primera magnitud.
والله بدك تبعد احذر لي شيء. هي في شيء بده يشعل هلا اسمع. بده يلبي هلا. انا هي بالمره بعت لي علي بعت لي. ليك عم محمد طويل يا اخي. 5 تصوير يفوت.
اخبار كثير. لا انت ضرب.
يا ماما. فوتي لو حتى انت اللي وترتيها اكثر من ما في قوه.
مش جايبه عليك انا وقت اللي شفت خوفني ما احكي شيء.
Syria issuing a strong warning to Israel following an airstrike near a major military airport west of Damascus. Connor Powell, live from our Mideast Bureau, with more on this today. Connor.
Martha, the Syrian military is saying that Israel will, quote, face repercussions for the strikes overnight, and that the Israeli government is helping, quote, terrorists in the fight against Bashar al-Assad. Now, Israeli officials, as they've done in the past, are not commenting on these airstrikes, but it is believed that Israel carried out multiple strikes at the Meze military airport outside Damascus over the night. The target appears to have been a weapons storage facility. The Syrian military are saying that 4 Syrian soldiers were injured.